Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Live Music's LiveWire. Tonight, we're very lucky because we have with us tonight Mr. Mike Shepard. Mike is an author. He's a historian. He's been a stake archivist. And what we're looking at tonight is a new book called Shepherding the Music. You should put it up here, Mike. This is a book about really the history of Louisiana music in this modern age. And this is something that is really going to be important for everybody to know about. Okay, the Louisiana Music Hall of Fame is another one of Mike's babies. And one of the things that's really nice, and I think this is a quote you'll see in the book. This is actually, let me say this exactly right. This is a labor of love for me. A direct quote from Mike about what he has done here to develop this. So, welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Bob.
All right.
And you're right, I wrote that in the book.
That's right. It's in the book, but it's something that comes out of his heart, which I think is the most important thing. So tell me a little bit how this got started, Mike.
The Hall of Fame or the book?
Well, I think they're both kind of intrinsically tied together in a
Yes,
way,
they
but you know
are.
what? Let's start out with the Hall of Fame because I
Okay.
think that's something people can put their hands on.
Way back in 78 or 79, Del Moon came to my house in Sherwood. You remember Del?
Oh, yeah. Del was a local TV personality here. who
And
was
writer.
involved, and a writer who's now living in Florida, as a matter of fact. But he was on Channel 2. He was an entertainment writer and...
Fun section.
Oh, yeah. He
Grigri.
gave it a full moon rating, as a matter
Yes.
of fact. Yes, right.
And he was one half of the Blues Reviews
The
brothers.
Reviews brothers, he and Eddie Allman.
Yes.
Yes. So go ahead, you and Del.
Del met me in my house in Sherwood one day, and we were talking. He said, man, I want to start this thing and call it the Louisiana Hall of Fame, LHOF. And I wanted to enlist you to help me with it. And I said, when, Del? He said, like, I'm starting now. Give me a month or two. I think I'll be finished with this, and I'll be more than happy. And we talked, and he said, I like it because you agree with me that we're losing our older artists. Yes, we are. And Del said, well, you know, that's because they started all the music in the world. Well, maybe not exactly the world, but the United States for damn sure.
Well, an interesting thing as you bring that up, one of the things you bring in the book, that is in the first part of the book, as a matter of fact, is when Del Moon, the gentleman we're speaking about right now, was with the LSU Union, and he was in the concert division, and he had brought in George Harrison. And George Harrison, in the limo ride, happened to mention that he thought that Ernie Cado lived here in Baton Rouge.
Ernie Cador.
Cador wanted to make sure that he still lived here because he was the singer of Mother-in-Law from back in the 60s, and he was one of the heroes of George Harrison. I don't think I need to tell anyone who George Harrison is. And I would hope not, okay?
No,
but
I remember.
But at the same time, this prompted Del to make a push for this, and he, being unable to finish it, you took over the reins after you got the truck done and the EWTN gear for the Catholic Life Center done, and have now taken this to a new place. So, skipping ahead a couple of years,
I sat on until after 2000, and I was sitting down one day and I said, you know, there's no reason this can't work. I said, and I know Del did some things wrong. Let me plot this out for a couple of months and how many things I can do right to start with. And I made a list and checked it twice and got it going. And one of the things was on my list was to make artwork that was consistent with the inductees.
Let's kind of flip this around to the camera so they can see some of the pictures. This book is full of pictures, ladies and gentlemen.
It's really a coffee table book.
Yeah, let me set this kind of up this way so you can see all kinds of people. I mean, we're talking page after page of wonderful Louisiana artists.
Warren Storm.
He could sit there and pick out everybody in this book individually.
Check this show.
Oh, look, all these folks.
Elvis
Just
at the
on
Municipal Auditorium of Shreveport.
On the top, we got Johnny Rivers. We got Mr. Neville's here from the Neville Brothers, as well as the Meters. We got John Fred Gourier, Satchmo, Louis Armstrong right here. Governor Jimmy Davis, who's responsible for You Are My Sunshine. There are so many, and we could sit here and spend all the time talking with that, but we do need to get a couple other pieces, a little subject matter here.
That's just the cover.
That's just the cover,
The
but
back
so
is
much
also
inside.
interesting. There are quotes on the back which are amazing.
I'm not surprised. But what we have here in Baton Rouge now at the Metro Airport is a display that you put together. And this is seen by how many?
Somewhere between 7 and 8 million since I put it up.
Okay, now 7 8 million people are seeing this when you come and you leave out of Baton Rouge.
When you go in through security and when you leave
I
out
would
of the out of the
invite
planes.
everybody, whether you're going on a plane or not, to go up there and take a visit. Explore what you can find out on this display. It's very comprehensive, detailed. It has some very, very cool things on there, some gold records, stories about some of these wonderful individuals that have been in the forefront in Louisiana music. And as Mike will tell us later on, you know, this is where it started. It truly did start in the bayou.
New Orleans became the heart of music a long time ago. Basically because the plantation owners had a, whatever they call their meeting, sitting around a table with beer, who knows, and decided that the slaves could use a day off.
Indeed.
The slaves brought with them certainly all kinds of percussion instruments. From the Caribbean, from Africa, they brought with them new types of wind instruments that we'd never seen before. Then the Europeans were bringing in, like we have Germans in Louisiana, things like accordions, and they all had violins. So those came in, and then the wind instruments made their way in, basically I think from Europe also, and that all landed in New Orleans. Jazz is sort of from Congo Square. It started out there because the slaves would put together strange percussion bands and horns and some stringed instruments, and of course we taught them things like guitars. They learned that real fast, and that's what made the gumbo of New Orleans in music. But the other gumbo in Louisiana, just as important, was Shreveport. And the Louisiana Hayride was the biggest thing in the United States for 48 to at least 68, 20 years. And it lived on past that. But they brought us people. Hank Williams is in our Hall of Fame because he spent most of his life performing in Shreveport.
Okay, and another luminary certainly that everyone would identify with would be the king himself.
Elvis.
That's right. He was a mainstay in the hayride there.
There's an old story that people used to tell without knowing what it was, that the deal was Elvis quit his job as a truck driver and took a job playing music. That was at the Louisiana Hayride. $53 a month.
The fact that anyone could even entertain that as a job is almost frightening these days, but is indeed a fact. And look where it certainly got him and helped bring us to where we are now. Now, aside from certainly the jazz, the rhythm and blues, Louisiana has another rich heritage with the Cajun music from the French people. The Creoles had their influence too. We've got Zydeco out on the west. So we have a lot of different types of music that we have here. And I know that you've highlighted many of those.
Swamp pop, we have blues
down here. That's
we
right.
have the rhythm and blues. That's what New Orleans became the center of, with the rhythm and blues.
Well, there's
And-
Dixieland jazz. I mean, there's so many. We could probably spend an hour or more just talking about the different types of music that we have here.
Well, and it's all that music that made the gumbo, that made rock and roll. On a CD, which I neglected to pick up on the way out the door, Good Rockin' Tonight, the true history of rock and roll, Louisiana. It has 34 or 5 cuts selected that lets you think about that and listen to them and go, hey, good looking, sort of had a little rock and roll in it. Hank Williams,
Yeah.
White Lightning, George Jones, was real close to rock and roll. It was past rockabilly and getting close to rock and roll. Mahalia Jackson, greatest gospel singer of the 20th century, was born and is buried in New Orleans. She was a big part of it. Jimmy Davis was a great. He wrote country, he wrote swing, and he wrote gospel. And he passed owning over 4,000 titles in Pure Music, his publishing company. And most of them were gospel.
Well, that's the roots that he came from. He was a North Louisiana boy, if I'm
Yes,
not
he was,
mistaken.
Jonesboro.
That's right. There you go. And he, of course, is famous for "You Are My Sunshine,"
Yes,
which,
he is.
other than "Happy Birthday," is the most popular song I think in the history of the world.
It's real close if it didn't.
It is sang in more countries than any other song around.
I saw a thing a couple of years ago where somebody said, "Oh, White Christmas is no doubt the biggest song ever," and they said, "No, actually, it's You Are My Sunshine."
Oh yeah. And they always said Louisiana politics was colorful. We had no idea how really colorful it was.
Well, Jimmy had songs in the 30s before You Are My Sunshine, like Bang Bang Lulu, which was just a little risque,
Yeah.
and things of that nature. He had that side to him, too.
Well, I think most young men do, and they mature as they get older. But then he was also, at one
do.
point in the movies, he was a singing cowboy.
Yes,
a
he
la
was.
Gene Autry, Roy Rogers of that
And he
time.
wore
Yeah.
6 guns.
That's right. They have definitely archived films of him doing that.
I'd like to find them because I don't know where they are. RKO
they're-
Pictures had them for a long
That's-
time,
and
and
unless-
Monogram Pictures bought part of them.
Unless they've been destroyed, unfortunately. But moving on to another subject altogether, you've also been a promoter for many years. And one of those things that he was responsible in many of the great concerts that have come here through the years. Not to mention Jimi Hendrix, for one. We had The Who, along with Herman's Hermits in one big show, when Herman's Hermits were the top billed band, and
Don't
The
forget
Who
the
were
one that
second.
preceded that.
Okay.
Eric Burden and the
Oh,
Animals
and the
at the
Animals,
Lakeshore Auditorium
Lakeshore
before it was
Auditorium.
Independence Hall.
That's right. Eric Burden and the Animals. Matter of fact, the big hit for them at that time was House of the Rising Sun. And that has its origins right here in Louisiana as well.
With Leadbelly.
That's right, Leadbelly. And Leadbelly was, I guess that was the first recording was around, what, 1912?
1918.
1918. I knew it was back there somewhere. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, he did that. He did Titanic in 1912.
Okay.
The story of the boat,
Okay.
which is strange. And for a long time, Leadbelly was considered the father of folk music because he did Rock Island Line was one of his songs. And Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan and several of them, that was their god. Hail to Leadbelly, the father of folk music.
Well, and then eventually rock and roll when you get right down to it.
Yep.
Because folk music's to the blues and rock and roll came from blues.
And then we got the other stuff that Leadbelly did, like Goodnight Irene. I didn't know you know that.
Everybody knows that one.
And the infamous Old Black Betty, Balam, Balam, Balam. All Leadbelly.
No kidding. That's an amazing story right there in and of itself. All of this can be found in some of the writings that Mike here does, and certainly shepherding the music is something that I think everyone is going to want to have a copy of themselves. So tell me, when is this book available and where will they be able to get it?
Well, we're going to have at least 100 in about 2 weeks or less.
Okay.
I'll know more tomorrow. And we're going to open with a couple of book signings wherever is open and people can go.
Yeah, if you can find someone open, put you a shingle out here on the side of the road and tell them you're writing it.
Yeah, or find somebody open and shoot the fire marshals that way and the governor's staff that way. It's a mess.
Well, hopefully the governor's staff and certainly in homage back to our legislature here that have acknowledged and endorsed this Louisiana Music Hall of Fame that you have put together. And I understand you also have plans for a brick and mortar location.
Yeah, we've always had plans for that.
Okay.
Dill had plans for that, and he never got 1 penny of the $10 million that was pledged to him. Not a penny.
Well, you're pretty dogged. I think you'll go after it till you get it.
Been dogging it for a long time.
Well, that means you never give up, which
Yep.
is the story of the musicians of this particular area.
But you get old.
Well, you get older, but one of the things that's important, and I think this is another quote from you, is that you want to preserve Louisiana's best renewable natural resource,
Well, I
which
think
is
the
our
quote
music.
is to honor and preserve Louisiana's greatest renewable natural resource.
Well, hence is the book, and hence will be the Louisiana Hall of Fame brick and mortar location. So we'd like for all of you that have interest in this at all to get in touch, not only with us here at Live Music's LiveWire, but look up Mike Shepard and his organization. Is there a way to reach you on the web?
Yes.
And that is?
Either LouisianaMusicHallOfFame.org, or you can use the shorthand. It will go to it also. LMHOF.org.
You got that?
It's a
We'll
lot
sit there
easier
and
to
put it
write.
up for you. And I think that this is something that everyone ought to pursue, certainly for those of us that live here in Louisiana, but for those around the world that can appreciate this is where it started, and you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. So we certainly would like to thank Mike for coming by here tonight and visiting with us a little bit. I definitely want you guys to look for this. This is something, it's a wonderful coffee table book. It's a wonderful book for you to read, to share with your kids, to actually bring something into the future that no one seemingly is aware enough of. So, with that, thanks again to Mike Shepard. We certainly will have him back another time, and we'll be able to tell you the progress here on the new building coming up and what awaits us in the future. We would like you guys to come and take the time to subscribe and to also share at our site. That's Baton Rouge Live Music, Baton Rouge's, excuse me, that's apostrophe S, Live Music on YouTube. So please come check us out and make sure you follow up at LouisianaMusicHallOfFame.org. It's going to be worth your while. Thank y'all for watching.